The 2024 NFL season is quickly approaching. I mean, we are already just a week away from this year's draft. And while teams are getting ready to add new rookie contracts to their rosters, it's really important to look back, the past year or two and to see how those players from those draft classes are developing. So in this video, we're going to look at 4 players that I expect to have a breakout season in 2024. I have 2 guys I think that are going to make jumps to be legit stars in the league this year. And 2 other guys that are probably already borderline stars in the league already, but I would project them to make huge leaps this fall, maybe even by making an all-pro team. So without dragging this out too long, let's get right into it. Looking at this first guy that I really think is a contender to break out this season is Anthony Richardson. I really like this guy coming out of Florida. Of course, he didn't have a lot of college experience as well, right? That was kind of sort of his knock on him going into the draft. Didn't have a lot of tape on him. He only really started those last 12 games at Florida there. So, and of course, last year, like I said, he only played in 4 games last season. In 2023, he had 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. So, of course, that looks good there. But only playing in 4 games is such a small sample size. Of course, football is already a super small sample size already. Only playing in 4 games, it's really hard to project that across the whole season. You haven't seen the guy at all. You barely saw the guy in college. But I really think that he has, if you could build a player in Madden, this is the kind of guy that you're going to build, right? Big, fast, he can jump, he can throw, the whole football field if he probably wanted to. This is the kind of guy you want to, you want to build around. So, of course, he has all those tools, and he's really already going into a pretty decent offense, with some all right weapons, right? Just locked up Michael Pittman. You still have Josh Downs. It's, hoping to make that leap with Richardson here. And you still have Jonathan Taylor, right? Sometimes a quarterback's best friend is a guy that you can just, hand the ball to. Jonathan Taylor, really great running back. And of course, a good offensive line is going to help that cause as well. Doesn't just take weapons and a run game and things like that. It's going to take a whole offense. But having a quarterback in place, of course, is, the whole key of that. So, like I said, Anthony Richardson has every tool you want, a nice set of weapons, and you're already dropping him on a team that was 9-8 and came in second in the AFC South last year. So, really good. Of course, they got some, I'm going to call it middling play from Gardner Minshew. Not bad, not great, not good, whatever. Just middling-ish play from the quarterback. If Anthony Richardson can go on ahead and, extrapolate on that and really, take that quarterback position to another level, that would be great for the Colts. And I think he's in a great position, not only to, he has the tools to make that leap, but he's in a good position by the organization to go on ahead and make that leap. And what I think that looks like for him is to get on that Josh Allen trajectory, right? Of course, this is only going to year 2. Only played 4 games last year. So get on that Josh Allen trajectory, right? You have a really good receiver in Pittman. You have a good run game, hopefully, with Jonathan Taylor. And, make that, start that leap right now in year 2 and get on that Josh Allen trajectory. And our next player, similar to Richardson, only played in 4 games in 2023, going into his second year in the league, is Christian Gonzalez. And, of course, plays for New England. Still is a really big corner, has really great size at 6'2", 205, long arms. And, of course, you're going to love that, right? That is, in today's league, right, that is kind of your typical, prototypical type of corner. That 6'1", 6'2", really long arms, can get up and press, can play zone, can play man, right? Big, fast, strong, all that stuff. He has all those tools to be that kind of player, right? And of course, with New England, you're probably looking at, a more of a rebuilding season, a more rebuilding year. So the defense, they might be on the field a lot this year, right? That's probably the better of the 2 units. Right now, sitting here in April, of course, I'm thinking, the defense is probably the better of the 2 units there in New England, so they might be on the field a lot, right? The offense might not be able to sustain drives and, score points, right? So he's going to have a lot of chances, going to have a lot of balls thrown at him probably. Not by that he's bad or anything like that, they're picking on him, but, he's only a second-year player with 4 games under his belt. So he's going to get balls thrown at him. He's going to have a chance to, make that jump, make that leap, and, he's going to have an opportunity to make plays in the ball, things like that. So, but there is good news. There is good news for him. He does have other really good players on the defense like Kyle Duggar, like Jabril Peppers, just in that secondary alone. And of course, New England's always going to bring it on defense, right? New England's always going to have a solid defensive unit, and I don't expect that to change under Gerard Mayo. I don't think that's going to be any different than it was under Belichick. They're still going to trot out a really good unit on defense, and Christian Gonzalez is, like I said, has all the tools, and he's going to be, hopefully for them, the main causing factor of that, of the defense being maybe not a great unit, right, mixing with that offense, but being just a really, really, really solid defense on what looks to be a rebuilding team here. So hopefully Christian Gonzalez, hopefully he can establish himself as a true number one corner this season. I think that's going to be the expectation for, myself, make that leap. But while that might be a lofty goal of being a number one, maybe not even a shutdown corner, but being just a true corner that can, compete with all of the other number one wide receivers that you're going to go against on defense, right? I feel like that's kind of my definition of a number one corner, being a guy that you're comfortable trotting out against the other team's number one receiver, and you feel at least decent about that matchup. So hopefully Christian Gonzalez can make that leap this year. Now, the next two players on this list have a little bit more tread on the tires than those first two guys. So let's start with this here with Drake London. And of course, the big thing of this is Kirk Cousins, right? He came to Atlanta. Of course, you get a quarterback with a young wide receiver. Of course you think he's going to pop off. But he did go for 866 yards and 905 yards in his first two seasons with, of course, subpar quarterback play. And say what you want about yards, right, being an empty stat and things like that. But I feel like for a receiver, it's not a bad... it's not a bad measuring stick, is just to see where that receiver's at in his career there. So, and he, of course, those first two seasons, he's already seen 100 plus targets both years. So really to see that number one, 150 plus targets in a season isn't that crazy of a jump for him. You can see that, right? He already had 100 plus. To get that 150, to be that true number one receiver, it isn't that crazy of a jump. And of course, we talked about it, with all these other players as well so far. There's a lot of talent around him, right? Football isn't just a one-man game. You need other people around you. There's 22 people on the football field at one point in time doing stuff. You can't just have one guy controlling all of that, right? You have 11 on offense, 11 on defense, 22 people. You can't, it's not a one-guy game. So having other talent on the roster, of course, is going to help, right? It's going to make defenses game plan around those other people, right? Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Mooney they just signed, and of course Kirk Cousins, right? The quarterback is going to make this whole thing go. Well, and no Arthur Smith. I feel like that's also going to help the Falcons a lot. But the main thing is Kirk Cousins, right? Not no Kirk Cousins, no Arthur Smith. But the main thing is Kirk Cousins, right? He's going to make the whole thing go. And just having that quarterback, having that reliable, he just knows how to play the game, right? He's a really good quarterbacker, right? He's a really good at playing the quarterback position. Really like Kirk Cousins, really like his fit in Atlanta with all this other stuff they have going on. And of course, it's going to help Drake London a ton. He's going to see, I believe he's going to see 150 plus targets. I think he's going to be that true number one receiver. I know they have, like I said, they have a lot of other people. They have a lot of other really good players. Robinson, Pitts, Mooney, right? All these other really good pieces. But I think Drake London he's a really good player. He's big. He has that size to him. And yeah, just really like what Atlanta's doing. And I think he can, similar to Christian Gonzalez, I think he can establish himself as a true number one receiver. What is a true number one receiver? He's the guy that gets the most targets, right? He's the guy that you throw out the most. When your quarterback is like, oh, F it, whoever's down there, right? Joe Burrow says, F it, Jamar's down there. That's what this is, right? That's what a number one receiver is to me, at least, and that's kind of what I'm basing this off of, and that's what I think Drake London can be. And as for the final player on this list here of breakout stars in 2024, I have Terrell Bernard of the Buffalo Bills. And of course, he already played on a really good defense last year. Well, I don't want to say it was really good, but there was a ton of injuries. Early in the year, when all the pieces were there for Buffalo, they looked really good. And Terrell Bernard was kind of, I don't want to say the focal point of that, but he wore the green dot. He called the plays. He was the quote-unquote middle linebacker to that. So, that says a lot, right? He had 100 plus tackles, 100 plus total tackles in 2023, played in all 17 games as a smaller linebacker. So, he did get, he got banged up in the playoffs, but he played in all 17 games in the regular season, right, as that smaller linebacker, like I said, because that is a concern, right, when you're playing these smaller guys, they played in the trenches with these bigger linemen, these fullbacks, these tight ends, stuff like that over the middle of the field. Can they stay healthy? Can they, not get banged up and miss 3-4 games here, a couple games there, whatever it may be. He did that last year, so that's a very good sign. And last year, he really did a little bit of everything for Buffalo last year. He had 3 picks, 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. It's a really good combination. And of course, this was Bernard's first year as their starting middle linebacker. They had Tremaine Edmonds, of course, in Buffalo, as last year he moved on to Chicago this past season. So that left, of course, Bernard a big hole there to step into, and he did that. He did that very well. He did that with flying colors, and he looked very good in that role. Of course, next to Matt Milano looked even better, right? Probably a little bit easier playing next to him, but we did get to see both of that, right? You got to see him play with Milano and to see him play without Milano. But getting all of those guys back, no, not all of those guys, because Buffalo did have quite a few recognizable names, I'll say, walk out the door this offseason. So, he's going to have to make a leap in that department as well, right? There's not quite as much of that top-end talent, right? So they're going to have to rely on, Milano and Taron Johnson and Terrell Bernard a little bit more. So what do I think a Terrell Bernard jump looks like in 2024? I think that is to become the best player on that Bills defense. That includes Matt Milano and Taron Johnson. Both have been all-pro players. So I think that is obviously a very lofty expectation, and maybe he's not outright the best player on the defense, but to be included with that, to be included with those names of Milano and Johnson, right? And he's already sort of there, but to really do it again this year, has another season like that, he will be one of the best players on the Bills defense, and I fully expect him to do just that this year. And that is all I have for this one. I really liked all four of these guys when I watched them throughout the 2023 season, albeit with small sample sizes from Richardson and Gonzalez. All four of these guys have a ton of talent, and I think they're going to have some chances to make really big leaps in their game this year. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I just want to remind you to like and subscribe to the channel, as this is a brand new channel. This is the very first video on the channel itself. Let me know if you think I was way off with this list, and who your potential breakout stars for the 2024 NFL season are.